Welcome back another week. I am so excited to have a guest today. Shae Chisman is a licensed marriage and family therapist serving folks in Georgia virtually, much like your friend here. She specializes in working with adolescents and adults who are struggling in relationships with themselves or others. She has a passion for serving queer, trans, and gender expansive clients. Shae uses her training in yoga, mindfulness, emotional freedom technique, and spiritual practices to help clients gain insight, heal from traumas, and regulate their nervous systems. She's been working in mental health for 8 years, has been practicing therapy for 4 years, and has a personal meditation and yoga practice for 20 years. Shae identifies as cisgendered, pansexual, chronically ill, Eastern Band of Cherokee Native American, white passing, neurotypical, mid-sized, curly hair woman on her ancestral Cherokee land. She recognizes that she embodies a number of social privileges, including non-disabled, education, skin color, in a heteronormative relationship, cisgender. Her goal is to I have chills. I have literally chills. Those of you on the YouTube thing, I have chills. I'm so excited to talk to her. Her goal is to decolonize therapy and access generational healing through her private practice work and her sacred activism. And you all, please welcome Shae.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm so grateful to be here sharing the space with you right now, Meg, and all of these people who are listening and watching.
I am just so pleased. It's just such a wonderful thing. So I usually start my conversations with people by asking them, how do we know each other? But when I slide into somebody's DMs, I like to save them having to embarrass me to be like, I don't know you, weirdo. You just randomly were like, hey, I follow you. You can talk to me.
And I was like, sure, absolutely.
That was
especially when I create your profile and realized we had so much in common.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I can't remember what post it was specifically, but it was like, it was there and I was like, oh, I'm gonna ask her, what's the worst that can happen? And here you are. So I know you were so quick with a yes too, which I love. So such a pleasure. I'm so excited. We have so much to talk about in the upcoming amount of time that we have. I'm gonna make sure that I don't keep you here for 5 hours because I feel like we could. So
it wouldn't be the worst thing, I think. Worst way to spend our time.
I feel like it would be good therapy for me, for the world to listen to, just to hear you get to speak on it. So, so the first thing I wanted to learn about was how you became a therapist, or what made you decide to become a therapist.
It's like, where do I start? I guess really my journey started when I was in play therapy as a child, and I have very vivid memories very early on of my first therapist making me feel really safe in a time where I didn't feel very safe in my life. And I have been able to reflect back with my mom on the insights that therapist had. And I remember when she shared that experience with me, being so fascinated with the fact that through play, this clinician was able to gain really clear insight into what was going on internally with me. And I've always been really fascinated. I have a healer's mom who's also a licensed therapist now, but growing up, she was a naturopath. And so I've always had this fascination with the inner workings of the human body and the human mind and the mind-body connection. I really thought I might go into the medical field growing up. And as I grew and continued my own personal journey with therapy, I just admired the work that my therapist did so much that I really wanted to do it too. So I decided straight out of high school, I'm going to get my psychology undergrad and I'm going to be a therapist. And I got a lot of pushback from professors in undergrad that, it's really hard to be a therapist. It's really hard to get licensed. And, it wasn't a very encouraging undergrad track. But once I found marriage and family therapy, I was like, this is exactly what I want to do.
Yeah. Wow, that is so interesting. And of course, we know that to be true. There are so many systemic barriers, which is why we have such a shortage. Just jumping right in.
Just spilling the tea right off the bat.
Amen.
It is so true. And that's something I feel really passionate about talking about too, is the gatekeeping that happens in our profession and how there are so many barriers, especially to minority clients, whether that's socioeconomic status or what have you, that it's expensive to become a therapist. But gosh, it's so worth it.
Mhm.
Not only because you get all this amazing training in life and how to do life for
Mhm.
yourself, but then you get to watch that transformation in others.
Absolutely. Amazing. I love it. And tell me more about what made you think, going from an undergrad in psychology, what made you say marriage and family therapy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was lucky enough to have a friend, Melanie Taylor, licensed marriage and family therapist, and she's currently in North Carolina. But we grew up in the same community together, and she also was pursuing a therapy career and was a few years ahead of me. So she was kind of going through the decision-making process and was sharing that experience with me. And we were talking about, she really gave me the insight of the systemic lens that comes with marriage and family therapy. It's not just about working with couples and families, it's about seeing the client as a product of the many and various systems that interact with them. And that just really resonated with my own personal philosophy about health and well-being and community wellness and global wellness. And I was like, yeah, I can get with that. So as she was going through finding her grad school, she was giving me this is KCREP accredited, this isn't, telling me what KCREP was, which is an accrediting body for counseling programs. So I was so grateful to have a kind of mentor that helped me through. And then my mom also was going through the process of looking at a therapy degree at the same time. So I had a lot of community that really helped me make those decisions and give me feedback.
Amazing. I just love to hear kind of how people got into our shared profession, right? It's just, lots of different ways of deciding where we're going and what we're doing. And I just think it's really helpful to kind of have that background. I honestly don't remember how I started following you on Instagram. And like I said, I really wish that it was something about tapping, but I don't remember now which one it was. But everyone go follow her. I will put all of the information in the show notes. But it was your Lil Miss post that really, I had already asked you to be on the show by this point. And I went through and I was talking, it said like one of them, I have it pulled up. So sinners and listens to BIPOC voices instead of engaging in performative allyship, moving her body, not to punish it, but to move stuck energy, which I want to talk about stuck energy a little bit more too as we move through the conversation. But the one I was like, Little Miss watches Drag Race as their comfort show. And I was like, I'm leaving right now.
Bye.
Shut it down. I was like, what is happening in the world? We were meant to be friends from Kansas to Georgia. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. How did you get into the Drag Race scene? Tell me. Or drag in general, not just the show.
Of course. So I am lucky enough to have been raised by a single mom who at the time had a bunch of roommates who were these fabulous, my gunkles, my gay uncles, basically. And they were her best friends that were our chosen family. And they very much exposed me to gay culture and drag and RuPaul and activism. And actually, in particular, watching Drag Race, once my younger sister came along, she really was obsessed. And so we would watch it sometimes together, but I didn't really get into obsessively watching it until I would say, my 20s or so. But my first drag show was actually when I think I was 13 or 14 years old, and it was for like my best friend's birthday party. And we were in New York City and we went to, I think it was Lips in New York City.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it. Yes. Amazing.
And I just remember thinking, this is magic. This is just pure joy and magic and talent. And gosh, I love drag so much. It is such a celebration of so many amazing things about queer culture.
Celebrating queer culture, the talent, the beauty, the things. Well, I have questions.
Yeah, we gotta get Trinity on. How can we get Trinity the Tuck on?
Okay, I'm writing it down. And when I have Trinity the Tuck on, I am going to have you on with, we'll co-host the episode, and Yeah, I have questions.
Literally a dream come true right now, this
As
conversation.
a human who does not have a penis, I have questions. But yeah, and I think it's interesting. So I went to Hamburger Mary's here in Kansas City with a girlfriend a couple weeks ago for drag brunch. And I sat there, and I was going to say not to get too political, but I think let's go ahead, because I'm also in Kansas and we're riding the wave of the August 2nd election. I mean, again, chills. We are feeling our oats out here.
So happy for all of y'all. Y'all are doing amazing work there.
I have to admit, the day of, I was nervous, and to see 47% voter turnout, which when you just think of the number 47, that is failing, but like compared to, and I need to Google somebody, one day I'm going to have a producer and be like, hey, sweetheart,
can you I need the numbers.
Darling, could you help me, please? I don't remember what our primaries turnout was last year, but I feel like it was in the 20s or lower. So I was really excited to see so many people who are passionate and came out and spoke out about it and made their voices heard. And so that was really exciting to see. And so I was sitting at Drag Race I was sitting at drag brunch, and I just thought, I was looking around, I was like, look at the joy and the glee and the excitement and the dang talent that is happening in this room. It is truly perplexing to me that people are like, let's try to put bans on drag.
Right. Absolutely. I think that it is, one of the best coping skills that we can do during this time, I think, to make it through, is to consume art that reminds us of our connectedness and of the joy that comes from people being their authentic self and sharing their gifts and talents with the world. And to think that someone's threatened by that is, from my perspective, just so hard to wrap my head around. And then, it's all about exposure, which is why Drag Race is so, and everything RuPaul has done is the exposure and demystifying and destigmatizing drag and trans people. So I even like the way that RuPaul has changed in the most recent season, saying bring out my legends instead of bring out my girls. Even there's more inclusive language. The show has even evolved as our understanding of gender expression and identity is expanded. So I'm so glad you got to go to that.
It was amazing. It was such a beautiful experience. And yeah, I like what you're talking about consuming art too, because I talk with clients a lot right now about kind of like, sorry to get to, for those of you who don't care, but like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And we're not in self-actualization right now. We continue to be in survival mode. And some of us are kind of climbing out of that in different ways. And also we continue to not be in that space. So I remember there were memes back during 2020 in quarantine when people were like, if you're not learning French during quarantine, then what are you doing with your time? And it's like literally trying to process the new world.
Watching Tiger King and dissociating. That's what we're doing.
Can you remember? Y'all take a moment. Think about when we were into Tiger King. Okay.
We've come a long way.
We've come a long way, but also, and I admit, like I'm tired of being in survival mode. I want to be back in more self-actualization. So when I can see opportunities like a drag performer or something very intelligent and beautiful and the talent, it's really nice for me to be able to see like, oh, okay, that sort of thing can still exist in this world outside of, we're not just surviving now. We have more time and space for beauty and for talent. So I was really excited to see, I like when you said that, I was excited. I was like, yeah, actually, that's really interesting, because I continue to have that conversation with clients. But yes, I am obsessed with Drag Race. I am obsessed with drag in general, but of course with quarantine and haven't had that. But I'm looking for more local drag that I can participate in. Yeah, and also to mention too, it's been interesting because you remember that RuPaul was anti-trans queens for a while, because Bruce felt like that was, to quote, an unfair advantage, which now we're understanding that drag doesn't have to be, air quotes, for those of you who are on the podcast, passing. It's not just about looking like a cis female. It's so much, it doesn't even have to be that at all. There are amazing queens who have beards, right?
Who are androgynous and can be, exactly. Yeah, we've seen that drag is really an expression of style and charisma and
Charisma.
uniqueness and nerve and talent.
Oh, I love it. I'm so happy that just got dropped on the show. I'm so happy right now. Those of you who don't know, they're like, what is what? Anyway.
What is that? Just think about it for just a second.
Just think about it. Yes. But it is funny because I have had people who were like, oh, I did not understand that's yes.
It's yeah.
But yeah, so I obviously I'm excited to talk about drag. I listened to 2 different podcasts. I actually had the host of Drag Her, his name's Mano Agapian. Do you listen to Drag Her?
Yeah.
Mano is on my podcast.
I've got to go listen to that. I haven't caught that one yet.
Okay, obviously, so y'all need to understand, I met this poor human 6 days ago, so don't read her for not having every episode.
Yeah, I've tried to do my research, but you know, we've got
no one read her. Okay,
no one read. Thank you.
I really would appreciate if you would listen to it because it's really interesting for a number of reasons. Mano's been very open about his mental health journey and his family history and everything, but it happened the day after Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars. The day after is when we recorded it, and then the next day is when the episode came out. And so we really talked a lot about that, which was really interesting because, of course, in my outline that I had given him the week before, I was not going to talk about the Oscars in a mental health podcast.
But you can't not.
It was wild. So it is a very, and Mano's just
discourse.
Yeah, Mano's just absolutely awesome. And he gave me a yes too, which I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask because if you don't ask, the answer's no. And he was like, yeah, I'd love to. So anyway.
And that's so inspiring. I just want to say, Meg, that's so inspiring to me because sometimes I have that difficulty and that imposter syndrome that gets in my way when reaching out and connecting with people. Yes. And that's so interesting because I've really been making it part of my intention to work through that discomfort that comes up when I do that. And I've been doing that more. And then you gave that to me. You gave that gift to me. And it was that like reciprocity in the universe coming back. So it was really divine timing when you reached out.
I just feel like things do fall into place at certain times for certain reasons sometimes. And I do agree. There have been times too, even in this, I took a little 2-week hiatus because I was like, what am I doing with my life? What is this? What am I doing? And I'm like, no, this is what, because I guess if I could be open and honest and vulnerable with the team, I was like, I mean, Brene Brown's not listening to my podcast. She's not going to learn anything from me. And then I had a girlfriend who has been on the podcast a number of times. And she was like, right, Meg, but not everyone has a PhD in social work and is a researching social worker. And there are things that you can share with the world. And I'm like, yeah, of course. I don't have to be all things to every person. But then also sometimes it's very easy for all of us to get in that space where it's like, what do I know? Why do people want to listen to me? And so it is, I think imposter syndrome, I'm glad that we really coined the phrase and are starting to do more looking into it because I think a lot of us recognize that. I had somebody who I used to work with many, many moons ago in Dallas. And she was like, she had a little bio from her work. And she was like, I have the most physical imposter syndrome just looking at this because it's like, this person does this and that and has a history with this and is doing this in our company now. And she's like, I like hardly can read this. I'm like, but it's all facts. It's everything on there is true. And that is your current job. And and even still, we all get in that space.
We all have that. Yeah. And if it keeps me on the more humble side, then I'll lean into that when it benefits me and don't get too big for my britches when I am feeling myself and knowing I'm the amazing therapy queen that I am.
Obviously.
Right. And I think that it's good for us to step back and always reflect. It gives us a moment to go, okay, what do I want to keep doing? What do I want to change? Right.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm so delighted to hear that I have a fellow sister in drag loving. I even have like a little text thread that I'm on. I just feel like it's nice sometimes to have something that does improve my life in a number of ways and maybe doesn't make me like intellectually more stimulated, but also, again, do you all know how smart people have to be able to do some of those challenges and the comedy? That's what I love about Mano too. If I'm sorry, I keep going on, but like he'll start talking about the challenges and he'll be like, well, if they'd have done this or this or this or this, which of course Monday morning quarterbacking aside, I'm like, your brain fascinates me. I love being able to talk to people who are like, tell me more.
Artists and intellectual. Yeah, it's the creativity that
I love it.
Is,
nice. Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about podcasts is these are all conversations without the podcast world that we have. We would be having these conversations. You and I would have connected some way, but now we get to like share it with other people. And that's the coolest part.
Just so beautiful. Absolutely. Okay. Well, for those of, I felt like we talked about things that were not just, I could have sat here and been like, so let's talk about Jinx in the final. But we peppered in mental health throughout the drag conversation, but I did really want to talk to you about how you incorporate yoga and mindfulness kind of into your daily practice, how you encourage your clients to do the same. I really liked on that same post where you talked about like stuck energy and movement for that. And I would love to hear more about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I am not someone whose true personality is someone who would go with the flow and just like really just very peaceful and laid back. Like I'm so type A. I am so much anxious energy inside of me that I had to find yoga and mindfulness in order to cope with the vast amount of anxiety that I was dealing with. And it was the first movement-based activity, because I had been in sports and dance throughout my childhood, but it was the first movement-based practice that I came to that I didn't feel the need to perform. I wasn't worried about how I was being perceived. I wasn't worried about if I was even doing the poses right. I was just trying to find what felt good in my body. And so it started out with literally like my mom bought some Rodney Yee Gaiam AM PM yoga DVD that I would do because I was homeschooled during middle school, and that was part of my homeschool routine was to do morning and evening yoga.
Oh, that's lovely.
I had like such a wonderful homeschooling experience and was not the typical homeschool kid, thank goodness. But no offense to typical homeschool kids, y'all are awesome too. Trust me, I've hung out with a lot of y'all throughout the years, and you're so special and unique. And don't let anyone tell you different. But you know, I guess the stereotypical like really introverted. I'm a huge extrovert, and I was part of a lot of groups and activities and things like that. So that was part of my routine. And I found that the days that I did it and actually stuck with it, I felt less anxious. And then the more that I started to study it, I understood prana, you know, I understood breath work. I started to understand and really want to like geek out, nerd out, research all of the science behind it too. I was really fascinated by it. And so now it's part of, I try to make it part of my daily practice, and it doesn't always happen. And there have been times that I've gone through big, huge streaks where, you know, I've done a lot of things to challenge myself and build my skills, my mindfulness and yoga skills. But it's always been for me about meeting myself exactly where I'm at, observing what's happening for me, and being able to move forward with that knowledge. I was talking about just yesterday about how yoga and meditation are both part of your mindfulness practice, or they can be. But the true work of mindfulness is when we're interacting with other people, right? So when I'm especially home by myself with my 3-year-old son, who's a tiny tornado, just like rip roaring and going developmentally through that time where his sense of self is really emerging, and he triggers the hell out of me all day. And I have to use, that is where I use my mindfulness practice the most.
Yes.
To be able to pause and observe what's going on inside of me and take ownership of that and figure out what's getting triggered, and to then give myself the validation and reparenting that it takes in order to know how to sit with difficult feelings, both within us and in our little tiny humans, which act like such a mirror.
Oh my.
It's like, oh, you having really big feelings and not knowing what to do with them is reminding me of when I was a child and I had really big feelings, and maybe there were people around me that didn't know what to do with them.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I'm feeling that anxiety now. So what I can do is I can be you're really sad. You're really sad. And just validate and name and breathe through it. And I'm so proud of my little guy. He takes deep breaths. He reminds me to take deep breaths sometimes. He's like, Mommy, you take deep breaths. I'll be like, bro, you're right.
Yes. That is so sweet. I am over here just jaw on floor because you talked about your tiny tornado, and we literally call my 3-year-old son the Texas tornado because he was
in
Texas.
Oh, that's so funny.
So the things just keep happening that tell me that we were supposed to be in each other's lives. And right.
I love it.
And again, it's so interesting because my husband was gone 4 days of last week. He was gone 4 days of this week. He gets home today. Hallelujah. Oh my gosh. And I have a 13-month-old, and she wants to be involved in everything, but she's also a little demolition crew. Like she doesn't want to build, like she'll put cups inside of cups, but she doesn't want to stack the cups. She wants to knock them down. She wants to take the puzzle apart, and he wants to do the puzzle. He wants to build the magnet tiles because he wants to show Daddy the house that he built for him. And she just wants to knock it down.
What a crew, man.
Right. And so that's been really interesting because I'm only one person. And so he'll want me to help him. But of course, the 13-month-old wants to get involved. And then I have to take her away, but then he don't leave me because Daddy's leaving him physically and not emotionally. He's very in tune, and he calls in the morning and calls in the evening and everything. And so it's been really interesting for me to try to express to him, because he acts out in anger, which he gets from the family. We'll talk about that another day.
What happened?
My episode again, y'all, she wouldn't know. We just met 6 days ago, but my episode 2 weeks ago was talking about anger as a secondary emotion. Is it not?
I did listen to that one.
Yeah. Oh, you did? See, she listens. Okay. Anyway, so I was trying to explain to this tiny 3-year-old in 3-year-old terms, like, I know you're sad and that's why you feel angry, and trying to express that to him. And that was last week and this week as well, because he just has these really intense outbursts. And so it's been really interesting. I actually teach a class over at the University of Kansas, and somebody was asking me about like parenting and everything. I said, well, I think the fact, and I don't want to say like, well, because I'm a social worker, I am a really good parent. That's not what I'm saying, but I am saying there are like big head, no. But there have been times where I've been able to reflect in the moment and be like, wow, I don't know how I would have responded to this, but since I had to respond to a child like this when I worked with children in an outpatient setting, it's like a psychiatric hospital or an inpatient too, or, there are times where my training does come in, kind of kick in. Absolutely. As a parent, which is a beautiful thing. And then, of course, there were people who are like, they're getting their master's degree and they're like, oh, so in about 5 years, I'll be a better parent. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying.
No, but you'll have so much more knowledge and understanding of how the mind works and what is helpful. I think getting a psych degree and your master's in social work or therapy at all, you're always getting training in life because you're understanding human interactions better. And so does it make you a better parent? No. Does it make you more resource? I think so.
I think so too. And I do, like I said, I think there are moments where I'm like, hey, I'm really proud of myself for handling that way. I utilize. And then there are times
the opposite where you're like, how am I a therapist? How?
Oh, but literally.
Like, why do people take my advice? Because I totally don't know how to keep my cool or whatever.
Literally, there are some times where I'm like, okay, well, that's definitely not something I'm going to teach the students next week. But but again, we're human, and it's just constantly.
We're human. Yeah.
Like last night. The last night was the puzzle incident where he wanted help with the puzzle, and I love doing a puzzle with him, and it's so fun, and it's so great to see his little brain work, and he's had it for a couple weeks now, and he's like really getting it, and he wants one-on-one attention, but I've got a 13-month-old who wants to be on top of me and also break the puzzle. And so I was finally like, you know what? And our air conditioning was not out, but it was low, so it was like
not working good
in the house. And so it was like 101 here yesterday, and so I was like, okay, we're getting in the car, we're going to Chick-fil-A. And I got
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A little Happy Meals, whatever they're called. I don't know what they're called there. And
Yeah.
I was like, and then later I like almost started crying because I was like, I just took the easy way out. I gave it to, and my daughter, and I made the bad decision of giving my daughter one of my son's French fries first. So then she didn't want
Why would you do that?
little grilled chicken nugget. So she had breast milk, and then she had some more breast milk, and then she had 3 French fries from Chick-fil-A, and then she did a little more breastfeeding before she went to bed. And I'm like, parent of the year.
There we go. You know what? Breast milk has far more nutrients than the nuggies would have had. So
That's exactly right.
Yes, that's exactly why I love breastfeeding my toddler too, is because when he was finicky about food, I was like, here's great food. Here's great nutrition. That's fine for you to decide that you don't want to eat that, because we got other ways to make sure your belly gets full.
Yes, absolutely. It's just such a journey as a parent. And I know, I just feel like what you're saying, everyone is just like, yes, speak on it, go ahead. Because that, even what you're saying now, I'm like, yeah, that was me literally yesterday. And I was like, I'm not cooking. I'm not doing it. We're getting in the car.
It's about balance, and that's modeling for your kids that, guess what? Some days we're going to eat crappy. We're going to eat a crappy meal. Or some days we're not going to have this super structured family time together. We're all going to zone out on our technology. Sometimes that's going to happen, right? And I think that that's really helpful with helping expose our kids' nervous systems to change too, and doing distress tolerance and how to deal with that.
I talk about distress tolerance like it is going out of style, because
it is like number one tool. Yeah, exactly. Which means you have to have a lot.
Yes. And I think that's what's so helpful about it. So I just want to validate all the parents out there, all the guardians, caregivers, whatever your chosen title is, that it is something, it's such a beautiful space to be in as the person in charge of another tiny human's life. And that sometimes we don't do it right.
No. And that's great. And as long as we're always setting the intention that we are going to show up with intention and mindfulness. I think mindfulness as a parent and a caregiver, as someone who even works with kids, even if you don't come home to kids, is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself and the little humans you're surrounding yourself with.
It's so true. And I don't ever want to say like I love the opportunities that I have to apologize, because I don't like that I've done something that I feel like I need to apologize for. But there have been moments where I'm like, I'm so happy that I have an opportunity to model, not because last week's was obviously the 5 horsemen of the apocalypse. Is defensiveness, right? And I'm like, I want to show my children, like, no, I'm not wrong because I'm the parent, and you just need to like, no, hey, buddy, raised my voice a minute ago. Really sorry about that. Really, that's not how I want to interact with you. Whatever it might be. So I do not look forward to, but I do cherish the actual moment of being able to say, hey, that's not how I wanted to behave. That's not my best self, how I want to put forward. That's certainly not how I want to interact with you. And again, it is, just taking those moments and doing what we can, right?
Yes, it's all about the repair. And you think about how different would our society be if we valued those authentic repair moments and really saw the magic in them, rather than living in our ego and defensiveness and operating out of that place. Taking accountability, right? Isn't that the antidote to defensiveness? Is accountability. Where can even when we don't want to, even when we don't want to, stuck on it, we have to take accountability.
Absolutely. So I wanted to have you, if you wouldn't mind, explain a little bit to the team about tapping. Oh my gosh, I think it's wonderful. I have no training in it at all. I have heard so much about it, and I would love to educate us, please.
Oh, tapping is such a cool resource. It is, to me, in my experience, it feels like hacking my brain, and that sounds so cringy. It sounds like a really horrible TikTok or something video, but but it really feels like you're inputting code into your brain using affirmations and manipulating energy fields. And our tapping points are the same points that if you go to an acupuncturist, they're going to be manipulating those with needles. If you go to a reflexologist, they're going to be manipulating those with pressure. So you're doing similar work by simply tapping, or even for people that the tapping is overstimulating, especially if you're in a highly anxious moment, your nervous system's really dysregulated, or you may have sensory processing disorder. You can even, instead of tap, hold the same places and put just very gentle pressure on the same places. So using specific kind of a formula of affirmations, we're able to prime our brain to accept what we're feeling, not change it, accept it.
Say it again for the cheap seats in the back, because I talk about this all the time. It is not about changing. It is about learning to embrace our emotions and know how to move forward.
Yes. It's not your feelings that are the problem. It's the way that you feel about your feelings, or it's particularly the shame that you feel about your feelings. That's the big one.
Yes.
But that's the piece that I fell in love with when I started studying EFT tapping. So I was like, you know what, if this doesn't align with my personal philosophy of like accepting how we're feeling and not like really trying to push it away, or sometimes I don't even really want to move it around. You know, sometimes when I'm feeling something, I want to sit with it and let it move for a minute, because there's work it's doing. It's telling me something. It's important. But once we've learned the lesson, or if we're even in a situation, we can't always sit with our feelings, especially when you're at work or taking care of your kids or driving down the road.
Right.
You can't always sit with your feelings. And so if you do need to move that energy around, you can use EFT tapping. And there's a specific order of tapping points. Shall I demonstrate?
Yes. Oh, I'd love that. Please. Yes.
Okay. So I actually just posted a video on both. Oh, I posted it on TikTok and it was too long to post on Reels. So it's on my story and I'll put it in a highlight.
I was just saying, I'm going to put all of your contact information. We'll talk about it at the end too. We'll put all your contact information.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So if anyone wants to go back and watch this, if you're listening, watch it on YouTube. And then if you want to save it on your phone, you go to TikTok. So it's a tapping routine for anxiety. I think that's something that I know I was feeling a little bit of before I got on. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to tap out some of this anxiety and I'll record it and share it with others. So we're going to start with what they call the karate chop point. And I hope that you can't see how horrible my self-tanner stands my hand.
I did. I went alone.
We're just being real here. So I don't want to
This is a space for it.
Yes. Let's be real. So you're going to start with a karate chop point, and it's literally on that point, like you would karate chop someone. So you want to take either one or two fingers, or again, if you don't want to tap and you want to just hold, you can just put your whole hand. But there's no exact science to where the spot is. You want to listen to your body, and you might feel some sensations like tingling or just more of an awareness there, and that lets you know where you're on all of these points on your body. So you start with the karate chop point, and you want to say the specific phrase of, even though I have felt anxiety, I deeply and fully love or accept myself. I say love.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah. So you can use that. You know, we're doing it with anxiety. We can insert any problem here, pretty much.
Right.
Even though I have felt depressed. And you want to make sure that you're saying the past tense. Because if you remember, we're like programming in this phrase to our brain.
Right.
So that is where we move the present sensation into the past by saying, even though I have felt anxious, I deeply and fully accept myself.
I love that. I believe so deeply in speaking things into existence. Like the whiteboarding of it all is kind of right. And it not necessarily has to be a whiteboard. I have Post-it notes actually, but like things that you can see and put intention to and keep into your consciousness. And I think sometimes people roll their eyes. I think especially in a non-professional setting. Luckily, I don't have too many clients who roll their eyes at me, though they're welcome to. I don't know everything. Ask questions, be curious. But I do sometimes when I'll say to a client or to friends or something like, oh, I wonder why they said it like that. Maybe if they said it like this, it would have made more sense, or it would have felt less judgy or whatever. And I have some people be like, it's just words, who cares? And it's like, it's not just words though. I have felt this thing is telling yourself we're moving forward versus I'm feeling it and will always do so. But I still love myself, which again, that of course is also very important.
Mm-hmm.
But I really love again, it's about intention. I say intention 1,000 times a day. It's about that intention of saying, moving forward, and what am I going to do with that? I really love
Our
that.
brain makes meaning of language. That's the way
Yes.
it works. We've got this amazing big squishy computer in our brain,
Mm-hmm.
and we can control some of it at least. Some of it. And the more that we can, the better we are. I think we are at adapting and being intentional about our choices.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So even though I felt anxious, I deeply and fully love myself. So you do that 3 times, that full long phrase. And then after the 3rd time, you move up to the top of your head. So if you could, make a cross across your head, it would be right in the very middle, right in the very top.
Sure.
And so then you just say the word anxiety throughout all the rest of these points. So it's almost like control find for anxiety in all of these parts of your body, right?
My job, for those of you who are not on the on YouTube, that's amazing. I love that. Control find. Amazing. And find the anxiety. Find it. Please
find it. Let's gather it. Yeah, let's gather it.
Amazing.
Right? So anxiety, and then you move to the inside of your eyebrows, so right on your forehead, and then the outside of your eyebrows, right at the corner of your eyes, and then right underneath your eyes in the middle.
Get those sinuses.
I know. Yeah, these always feel extra sensitive to me. And then right above your lip, under your nose, and then under your lip on your chin, and then the collarbone. So you can always either just do like one hand or you can do 2. It's just like, again, whatever feels good to you. Find what feels good. To quote Yoga with Adrienne, if anyone practices with her. So then on this like kind of solar plexus area, right underneath your like breastbone here, and then we go underneath the arm here. And then we go on the outside of each finger. And you can just do one hand. You don't have to do both. So you would tap this right on the outside near the top knuckle on each finger. And then you always want to make sure with your thumb to flip your thumb to the outside. Because you don't want to go on the inside. That's not where we're trying to go. Then you come to what's called the gamma point after you've done that. And you go back to the long phrase, even though I have experienced anxiety, I deeply and fully accept myself. And then you want to end with some heart activation breathing, where you place your hand on your heart and you take a few mindful deep breaths. And the amazing thing about that practice, when we place our hand on our heart, is it sends signals to our brain to sync the electromagnetic energy that our heart is producing and our brain is producing. So when people do this, when they're hooked up to the EKGs and ECG machines, you can see the activity mirror itself. So it's very deeply regulating. So it allows the work that you just did to really sink into your nervous system. And it helps you feel a lot calmer. So I really suggest that clients do some scaling questions before and after using the tapping technique, so that you can really measure the difference in the intensity of the anxiety or whatever the symptom is.
Amazing. That is, I mean, it's just really wonderful to be able to have something that physically you can do. I think a lot of times clients want, because I operate under solution focused brief therapy, so we're talking about goals and things that we can do to move forward, and it's nice to have those action steps. And I think this is especially something where very physically you can do something in the moment, that you can, if you with practice, be able to get to a space where you can get better and actually help to impact that. And I wonder if people really take a second and think about how our bodies work. Like our bodies are just like, there's no battery. I mean, it's our heart, but like what's keeping the heart going, right? And it's all of those electromagnetic situations and the shots being fired throughout the brain, and all of that is connected to make this beautiful thing that we have called a body go. And so we're trying to help in some way make sure that those processes are doing it in, in the highest form that they can.
Yes, to all of that. It's so empowering. It's so empowering to have something that you can literally feel. And especially if you get very mindful and beforehand, when you're doing those scaling questions, really notice what's going on physically in your body. Mm-hmm. Where is the anxiety located? Where do you feel it? What sensations come up when you feel it? And then being able to ask yourself those same questions after and feel the difference, or if there's not difference, then be able to have information of, okay, I need to do something else. It's very, for someone who loves problem solving, I love to intellectualize my own emotions. And so anytime I can have a plan, let's do something about those feelings, that feels really great. And I want to recognize and acknowledge sometimes EFT tapping may not resonate with someone.
Sure.
And that doesn't mean that you're too broken or you're unfixable or anything like that. Sometimes these healing tools are simply suggestions of, hey, this has worked for me. This has worked for other people. It might work for you. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, we'll at least try to find something else. And
here's another list of 1,000 other things that we can try. I think that's very important for people to keep in mind, because especially how we kind of misappropriate things. Like the thing that just popped, that comes screaming to mind that everyone is saying now is like, we talk about self-care, we talk about bubble baths. And it's like, no.
I mean, for everyone. Some people don't have that.
Yes. For some people, absolutely. I people who have heard some past episodes, I have a very good girlfriend who that is her thing. Getting in a bath.
Oh, yeah.
Physically helps with some of her aches and pains. Emotionally, it is her time away. The toddler is locked out of the room. Dad has him or somebody else, right? So that really does work for her. But I've had clients get in a bubble bath and come back and be like, well, I suck at this because that was awful. I hated it. And I'm like, well, then you can hate having a bath. That's fine. Don't do a bath. Do something else.
That's okay.
You're not broken. You're not wrong. But so again, as lovely and as excited as I am to start trying to incorporate this into my own individual practice, to keep in mind for people to say, if this isn't for you, then it ain't for you. We move on. Look over there. Find something else.
Yeah, there's something out there. There's something out there that will help you. There's so many practices that we can explore that help us accept where we're at in this moment and love ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. So I hate to take what feels like a very radical, like we're going from tapping off into a different tangent, but I really wanted to talk about coming back to that Instagram post about and also in your bio that I had read earlier, you talked about decolonizing therapy, which a lot of us are very passionate about, and all of this information that goes with that. And I really talked about listening to voices instead of engaging in performative allyship. And I think that's a very tough place for people, because people want, again, we talk about wanting to do. I want to do something. So what billboard can I create? How can I amplify other voices? By me talking. Right.
Exactly.
So I'd love to kind of get your take on what your vision is for that and what that looks like.
Absolutely. There are so many ways in which I want to decolonize therapy and the mental health field. I think one of them is taking that person-centered approach and be very explicitly saying, I'm not the expert in the room. I'm not the expert on you, that you are the expert here. And I'm here merely as, a guide with my own expertise to help you navigate and access what you want. Right. And so that's, I think, the first most basic foundation of it is making sure that I'm centering my clients as a therapist and their experiences and their voices, and really tuning into their how they've experienced their own culture. Doing the education piece also for me, and making sure that I'm finding minority voices and taking, reading their books, taking their trainings, listening to their podcasts, consuming their art, voting for people who are going to reflect them in our offices, even at the most local levels. That all is part of decolonizing therapy to me, and ensuring that I'm not centering my own experience or my beliefs or values, with every client that comes in the room, and then ensuring that I'm doing always searching for ways to practice sacred activism, whether that is showing up at a rally or, I campaigned with John Ossoff and Senator Warnock's campaign here in Georgia and sent out texts, all of the time, ensuring that we turned the state blue and were able to have more representative people in office to, writing my senators about water protection and Indigenous rights, staying protected and expanding those protections rather than taking them away. So there's so much I could say about this that I almost get so excited. I don't know what to talk about next. Is there any other questions that you have for me about that, or do you think that one thing I want to talk about is practicing mindfulness and my spiritual practices, as I make sure that I learn from people who aren't culturally appropriating them, and I find out about the origins of those practices and ensure that I'm not practicing anything that's a closed practice. So for instance, I use tarot in sessions, and actually tarot reading and doing divination and fortune telling with tarot is a closed practice among the Romani people. So I don't ever fortune tell with my tarot cards. I've made sure that I've gotten culturally appropriate training on how to use them for radical self-reflection. So those sort of things I feel really passionate about too.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing that with me. It's like I said, it's tough because there are people who feel motivated by, let's be honest, the history of the world, but particularly we keep having these instances that come up and people wanting to find ways to help, or to be inclusive or to step outside. I like how you described just now, though, like it's good to use something that somebody of color or of a different background than you has created or is their practice, if you are appropriately trained to do so and you are using it in a culturally humble way versus, hey, I heard about this thing. I'm not even going to give an example. This thing, and I'm going to start using it in my practice. White chick from the Midwest. Here we go.
It's like yoga. Yoga is that. Like it's so hard to practice culturally appropriate yoga because it's been so culturally appropriated over the years.
That's exactly right.
And I also believe another piece of decolonizing therapy is depathologizing a lot of experiences among minority clients. And seeing, so many of my queer and trans and gender expansive clients are experiencing such levels of severe depression and anxiety. That is a direct result of them being non-affirmed and discriminated against and abused and neglected and not valued. So that's not really like, generalized anxiety disorder, even though they might meet the criteria for it. I want to address that problem within the context that it exists and not purely just talk about, let's challenge those unrealistic thoughts. Let's honor the fact that you are a walking miracle every day that you live.
Absolutely. It's so true. I mean, we've got this historical generational oppression that people are trying to overcome. And it's very difficult for a lot of people to be able to empathize with that or imagine. And so again, it's being about being curious and just asking questions. And how can I come alongside you while not asking you to do the emotional and intellectual labor on my behalf, and also being a support, using whatever platform I may have to amplify somebody else's voice, but doing so in a culturally humble, not like, everybody look at me while I'm doing this thing for somebody else. Which is point
to where you learned them from, right? Like I learned the tarot training I received from inclusivetherapist.com. If you guys don't know about that resource, it's a wonderful resource for therapists.
I'm going to put that on the list.
Great CEUs. That was where I learned it from, and it was from someone who, was an expert and had done her own research on that. And I wish I knew her name, but maybe I can get that information to you.
Yeah, that would be great. And I put the inclusivetherapist.com for those continuing education units. And then of course, anybody else who doesn't necessarily need CEUs, but wants the information, it's there to be found. Absolutely. Well, I feel very confident I'm going to have you back on and we'll talk more about all of this and more. Drag Race 50.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. Meg, I feel so synchronized with you. I feel like I wish we lived closer.
I feel like literally thinking the same.
It's probably best because if we got our kids together, it would be like a big, huge explosion. Like we would need to invest money in the cleanup of the aftermath. But I feel so close to you, even after just talking to you for one time. I cannot thank you enough for bringing me here and inviting me on.
It is genuinely my pleasure, and I want to thank you for your intellectual and emotional labor that you've provided here. And yeah, I'm already thinking about like the next episode.
So excited. Y'all get ready.
Absolutely. Yes. All right. To everyone else out there, thank you for sharing this space with us. Be curious, not judgmental, and make it a good one.